everyone. It's Lex, and it's time for part 2 of our Legend Cast interview with Jaret Reddick of Bowling for Soup. Hour 1 was awesome. We got the intro, got kind of the skinny on what's going on with Jaret and Bowling for Soup and all the things he's involved in. We know now that he's a family man. We now know that he is probably going to do 100 different things because that's just what he's wired to do. And we also know that he is going nowhere anytime soon except on your TV, on your phone, in your ears. I mean, the guy is just a prolific worker if it has anything to do with media. We also, and I love this section of the podcast because it's not something I've ever done before, but we became friends during this part of the podcast. We had a nice conversation about it after it was over, and it was kind of cool to have a guy of Jaret's background and somebody who's pretty much known all over the world to say, dude, I think we became friends during this podcast. There's so many things we're both into and so many things that, we see eye to eye on. I feel like we're going to be friends for life. And that's kind of how I felt. I just didn't want to say it because, a rock star can always go, yeah, no. But, of course, he said it first. So he put himself out there, and I was quick to agree that Jaret and I did become friends during this next hour here. It was very cool. But what you're going to hear in this 3-part podcast is a guy who really has a zest together. And in spite of all the stuff he's done musically and something he could stake his claim on and do the rest of his life and make money and probably be happy, you're going to hear a guy who is just not going to stop there. There are so many different things he wants to do. So we hope you enjoy this next couple hours coming up. This is part 2, and you're going to hear a lot about Jaret Reddick, Bowling for Soup, his family, his friends, what makes him tick, and, of course, a friendship being made as we get into part 2 of the Legend Cast with Jaret Reddick. And then there's the new Lex and Terry podcast. We're getting ready to drop a free one here pretty soon.
Nice.
And one of the things that's missing from us was kind of government made, and that is what Lex and Terry did in the beginning. A lot of the crazy stuff we did, thanks to Justin and Janet, we couldn't do anymore.
Yeah.
You can't call people up on the phone anymore. Without saying, you're being recorded and all this stuff on government radio, elsewhere.
Yeah, you can kind of do whatever you want to
do. So there's, we listed dozens and dozens of things we don't do anymore.
Yeah. The thing that made you
Yeah, definitely a big piece of our fiber that we're going to, do along with some other things that we never did as ideas because we couldn't. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be something we debut next year as a free podcast. Because right now our Sudden Death is a subscription podcast.
Right.
And it's P1 all the way. I mean, it's inside stuff. You got to be the consummate Lex and Terry fan to enjoy that podcast. This one will be much more appealing to when it gets marketed to people coming to the Lex and Terry brand that didn't get to experience it, or even better, out of the 40 or 50 cities that we've been on and off over the last 20 years, we have 12 markets we went number 1 in and then got taken off the air for one reason or another.
Yes, you gotta re-grab those people. Yeah, those people are all listening to podcasts now. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So, we get with the right place and get marketed. We could have a bazillion downloads. People that, have had to desert the Lex and Terry brand. So we're excited about that. I mean, that's just the world we live in now, and like you guys, I'm sure there's things you've had to leave by the wayside through labels or people you're dealing with where, they're instructing you to do something that you in your hearts probably think, we should keep doing. Or yeah. I mean, I'll tell you something about me that a lot of people don't know, and that is I am a sucker for the 3-minute power pop song.
Oh yeah,
which is like your specialty.
That's my that's my thing. Is that formula and that I mean, I started out as a songwriter that I basically started writing songs because nobody else in my band would, and I just basically wrote these punk rock songs that I didn't have any sort of structure to them or anything like that.
The best ones.
I didn't write them, about anything from my heart. And over the course of the years, I've started writing about things, about my personal stuff and about just real life and obviously stuff to just make people laugh. But yeah, you're right, man. I love verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, done.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my 1985 definitely in my top 5. All the Small Things.
That's Blink-182. Yeah.
My number one
That's
favorite
a good one.
power pop song.
Yeah.
God, I'm going blank right now.
There's so many good ones like that, though. Like,
Raspberries Go All the Way.
Oh wow, yeah.
Just that 3-minute great rock song that, like you said,
meat and potatoes.
Yeah, meat and potatoes, and that melodic guitar. It's just God. What's the name of the band? It's Fireside, I think is.
I don't know that band.
No, that might be the name of the song. Shit, I'll find it here when we take a break.
Okay.
But, I heard that one day on my Discovery thing that Spotify does.
Yeah.
Yeah, they give you 30 songs a week that are kind of in line of stuff you listen to, and it's like that song came on, I'm like, yes.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I love stuff like that, Open My Eyes, the Nas, which is Todd Rundgren before he was Todd Rundgren. Yeah.
Dude, I saw Todd Rundgren. I saw the very first show when he was in the Cars for a little while.
Oh, wow.
They did a private party.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, they were called the New Cars.
Yeah.
And I went to a private party in like a sound studio and like last minute invite and just got to see the Cars play with Todd Rundgren. It was crazy.
No, people have no idea what a fucking genius he is.
Yeah, that dude's a maniac.
He used to frustrate the shit out of me along with David Bowie because their range of imagination is so huge that you don't get what you got in the last record that you were so waiting for. You get something totally different because they're capable of doing it.
As an adult, I guess I was like 40. David Bowie's been gone, what, like 2 years?
Yeah.
So I guess I was like 44-year-old man. And I remember when he passed away and you would start hearing some of the songs. I literally didn't know that some of those songs were him.
Right.
I mean, I knew the songs, but I was just like, I had no idea that was David Bowie.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, especially on those early records. And I didn't know he wrote till a couple years ago, All the Young Dudes.
Me either. That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just gave it away. Mm-hmm. He heard the band and went, this would sound better with you than me here.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's a hit song, Ian.
Yeah, take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of those, though. It's like, when you like when I was a kid and, I got to be like in college or whatever and I discovered all the songs that were Beatles songs that I didn't know were the Beatles. Mm-hmm. It's funny how that happens, Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of, that whole Eagles, Jackson Brown, Linda Ronstadt thing. It's like you start finding out who wrote what, because they all sat around and wrote songs together. I had no idea Take It Easy was written by Jackson Brown.
Yeah, I had no idea either.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you know what my favorite version of that is if you figure out all of the hit songs that Willie Nelson wrote, it will blow your mind.
I know.
It's crazy.
Yeah. One of the most prolific songwriters of our time.
Ever. I mean, it's just crazy, how many of those songs that he wrote and that didn't perform. I mean, seriously, if the listener should Google that just like how many songs that he's written. It will literally just freak you out.
Yeah, and the guys in the background, like the Bernie Taupins, who doesn't get talked about, but there are no Elton John songs if that dude's not around.
No, he tried to do one album without him, and it was terrible.
Yeah, beyond terrible. Actually, it was just perfect chemistry.
Yep, they that's just something that those two. So Bernie's the lyricist for Elton John.
Yeah,
and it's just one of those things where you don't really think about that whole thing, and to me, it's such an interesting way to write songs anyway. To like just be given this okay, here's this poem, or whatever, here's these lyrics I wrote, now go make it a melody and stuff, like, as a songwriter, that's weird to me. But you know what?
But who cares?
It freaking works.
As long as it comes out like it does.
Yeah.
I really don't give a shit how it gets put together.
Same.
Elton John shouldn't feel bad.
No.
That he's grabbing somebody's lyrics and constructing greatness with it. It's it doesn't make me think any less of him, because the fact they need each other
exactly
is even cooler to me.
I think it's the coolest thing. Yeah, and just the fact that they have so many. The fact that he has 3 greatest hits albums. That's nutty.
Yeah, with different shit on it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, they're all based upon different years. So there's just 3. He's got so many hits that it takes 3 albums to put them on there.
Yeah, I got Tumbleweed Connection on vinyl, and I had it on in the apartment one day, and Lisa was like, "Who's that?" And I went, "It's Elton John." She went, "No way."
Right, yeah.
I went, "No, this is what he was in 1970. This is what he was." And then she's like, "Wow."
Flamboyant rock star.
Yeah.
Just chicks loved him. He was married just to a girl.
Yeah.
I mean, just a completely different world. And he, and you know what? He's managed to reinvent himself several times to go out of to go keep in tune with the times. Because it's like, I remember like being in junior high, and I didn't know any of like the past stuff or whatever, but I loved that song, "Sad Songs," and
So you had never heard "Madman Across the Water" or "Yellow Brick Road" or
not until high school. I mean, I was still like, I'm still standing and that kind of stuff. And then once I heard, actually, here's a great story of how I got into so many different things. Is when I started figuring out that I was listening to cover songs. So Flotsam and Jetsam, the rock band, did a version of "Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting."
I actually worked that record.
Did you?
Yeah.
So "Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting," and I was in a metal band called Terminal Seasons, and we did a cover of that cover of a cover. I had no idea it was an Elton John song.
Yeah.
No idea. When I found that out, I bought an Elton John greatest hits record with that on there, and I was in love. But like, it goes back to like, I didn't know that "Helter Skelter" by Motley Crue was a cover. I didn't know that "Radar Love" by White Lightning was a cover. It's funny how that stuff. And Thunder, "Gimme Shelter." My daughter had it on in the car. I was taking her to ride her horse, and I said, whose version of this song is this? And my daughter goes, "Theirs." and I went, "No, honey." Was that Cinderella?
No, it was Thunder was the name of the band.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so I said, "Check this out." So I got "Gimme Shelter" by the Stones.
Oh, okay, that "Give Me Shelter."
Yeah, and she just went, "Oh, this is better."
Oh, she likes it.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So of course it's better. It's the fucking Stones.
There you go.
She she definitely had this bias towards Rolling Stones. I don't know where it came from. Probably her mother, who hated "I Love the Rolling Stones."
Right.
And she was riding horses and stuff, so I gave her "Wild Horses." And
that's a great record.
And from that point on, she now has the complete library all over her phone. She's like a Stones addict. My work is done.
So I'm not a Stones guy. I'm a Beatles guy.
See, I'm a Stones guy all the way.
And is that? Do you think it's like that? Where like remember the old thing where you can either love Elvis or you can love the Beatles, but you can't love both.
I can love both.
Yeah,
I can. Yeah.
I do not love Elvis. I
don't like Elvis at all.
Okay, I don't either.
Yeah, I'm not an Elvis fan, but I understand why people love him.
100%. If you go back and watch some of those first videos of him and know the time and all of that, man, it's just the guy's maybe one of the most brilliant performers ever.
Without a doubt. I mean, he was by himself, too. I mean, there was nobody like him. Everything he was doing was groundbreaking, was on his own. I mean, he didn't know what people were going to think.
No.
You know, he just went and did his thing, and it was boom.
It was almost like everything that everybody would tell him not to do, he would just do it. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we don't like his hair being that long, which is funny because his hair wasn't long.
Yeah, wasn't long at all.
And we don't like him shaking his hips, and we don't like him thrusting his pelvis, and, you know, all of this stuff. And so he just made it his act.
Yeah, I wish, I don't know what happened to him to, like, send him into, like, the bluesy, churchy stuff he was doing, you know. I guess he was having some sort of inner soul problem or something. I don't know, but
he had mom issues, right? Like he was like real, and like his mom had like a big grasp over him, and when she was very religious,
and when she died, you know, it like fucked him up and all this stuff. But I got to tell you, man, if he would have kept going on the course, the rock and roll course, God knows what we'd be dealing with right now, you know, music wise.
Can you imagine, like, during the heyday of that time, like, what was going on backstage at those shows? Like, I mean, oh, you can imagine. Yeah, that's right. We can, can't we?
We can.
Yeah, because
we can. I mean, he had, in the end, you know, I saw this documentary on him. I saw, you know, his whole life was to wake up at the middle of the day, you know, take whatever he had to take to get right, go to the venue, do his thing, then would get taken right back to wherever he was staying. I mean, that was his whole life. He really didn't go do things.
Right. Well,
you know, for years. You know, the colonel just had total control of his life and everything. And, you know, that's where things went off the rails for him. You know, he went from having interaction with everybody to seclusion and gone. And,
right.
You know, I remember my mom talking about it, you know, how fucking weird he become. It's actually the terminology she used, you know, because we swore in our house.
He's fucking weird.
Yeah, and she goes,
hey,
he's
Lex.
just gotten fucking weird.
Just want to let you know, you can find me on social media pretty much no matter what you do.
You know,
if you're a Facebooker,
I don't really listen
you can
to
get
him
me
anymore
at
anyway.
/official
She's
Lex
like,
Daily.
I know. I hear all the shit you're listening to upstairs.
Right.
You know, I'm upstairs listening to like Aerosmith Rocks and Alice Cooper Killer and, you know, Black Sabbath.
What's up, everyone?
I mean,
let's talk some social media here.
Just one
if
thing.
You need
I
talk
couldn't
to the legend,
spend
then
enough
you can
money
do so on Facebook.
You know, when I moved to Florida, and that's pretty much
official Lex Daily.
all I had. I didn't have friends yet and everything.
I am
so
at Lex
I was
Daily,
any money I made, I was putting towards
Twitter a lot lately. So let's look up on there and talk some S.
Steely Dan,
in the
Asia.
end, I love me some
at
Instagram.
And I remember her coming up and going,
at Lex Daily on there.
Now, I know,
Please feel free to reach
is
out
a very musical
and
town
make
now,
sure
but
you let me know what's up with you, because
it had to
I'm going to
have
let
been
you know what's up with
quite
me.
a culture shock, because Florida has always been, I mean, like,
sucks.
there's just, it's so diverse. There's music everywhere there.
Well, I mean, I moved right into the Southern Rock explosion.
Hey, you guys,
I mean, it
it's
was
Lex,
Allman
and,
Brothers
right
and
now
Hatchet
it's
and
football
Skinner,
season,
38
so
special,
a lot
and,
of action on
you know,
my social
even,
media.
You know, Ronnie's
Love to
brother
comment
Johnny,
on what's going
you know,
on
who
in
sings
college
for
pro
Skinner
football.
now. He had his
and
own
of course
band.
hockey, basketball, and everything else.
You know,
heating up
Blackfoot,
too.
Ricky
Not to
Medlock,
mention great
you know,
movies coming out.
You know, all
These
those
are
things
all
were
passions of mine.
exploding.
So if you want to find out where I'm at on these things, reach me on Twitter.
Probably the hottest
at Lex Daily,
bit of music
Instagram,
in the world at that
once
time.
Again,
You know,
at
like
Lex Daily,
7 or 8 charting
and
bands.
On Facebook,
that
I am
lived on
official
the west side
Lex
of town.
Daily,
You know,
not just Lex
half the
Daily.
Allman Brothers
so
are
make
from
sure you check it
Jacksonville.
out.
Really?
I am going to be putting some
the only ones that
awesome
weren't
takes
were,
on there,
you know,
and you can check
Greg
them out
and,
once again.
And
at
Dwayne
Lex
before
Daily
he died.
on
You know,
Twitter,
everybody else was
Facebook,
basically
and Instagram.
a Jacksonville product.
That's funny how that happens. Like, how cities do that. So obviously everybody knows about the Seattle thing, and everybody knows about the New York thing with the bands.
There
and then,
is,
Lex Jaret. The people might not know that we have a Dallas one that happened, where in the 90s where like the Nixons and Trippin' Daisy and obviously it wasn't as huge, but there are these little pockets where the Toadies did I say
Toadies? Yeah.
Hey, it's Lex. Stacy and I
all
have
these bands
commiserated,
Bob Goblin,
and we're getting ready to lay down a bunch of threesome
right at the same
podcasts.
time.
Nora Jones is from here too.
If you want to hear some very strange takes on a lot of things from two people that just have a weird chemistry, sometimes pretty dark, but always kind of enlightening at the same time, then you want to check out the Threesome Podcast. Just look for it.
She came on the show.
Also on the Spreaker platform.
I don't know how it happened.
Spotify.
She was just
we are
leaving
now on
high
Spotify,
school, and I don't know if she just got signed.
That's the
or
number
whatever,
3.
but she was a huge Lex and Terry
there you
fan.
go.
No kidding.
Quite easy.
And
make sure you
she
check it
wanted
out
to
though,
meet
if you
us.
haven't
So
already.
she
Because
arranged
we
it
are
through the
rocking
record
it right
guy,
now
through our program
on the
director,
Threesome
and she
Podcast.
came in, and we had her on the show and played some of her stuff, and we were like, oh my God, you're extremely talented.
Yeah.
We were like, good luck.
Stacy and
with
I
your career.
love doing the Threesome Podcast.
And I remember
we
she
took
was
some time
beautiful.
off,
She was
but,
sweet.
All we got out
she
of
loved
that
the show.
was
That
some
didn't
amazing
hurt.
perspective.
And
and now we're
she
back
left,
working
we were
it.
just like,
if you want to check out Threesome Podcast,
that's a
you can do so on LT2, the Spreaker platform.
Sweet as can be, and from what I understand, still is.
We are now on Spotify.
Everybody that I know that comes in contact with her
you can always catch us on iTunes. You iTunes subscribers.
She has a couple records that have come out.
LT2 channel
on
is on the Lex and Terry
Spotify
free
I just
app.
instantly
You can download for
They're
your
great to listen to
iPhone
while you're
or
like
your Android.
hanging out on Sunday morning or whatever.
You can find us everywhere.
Yeah, she's like my
Stacey's
vibe.
Threesome Podcast.
To just chill out on a weekend day. Her voice is.
Yeah,
Hey,
it's
Lex.
like
Right
it's
now,
like melted
I
butter.
just
Exactly, I was
completed
gonna say
an
it's like butter.
amazing
Yeah, it is.
Legend-cast
Yeah,
with
she's something
none
else.
other than Jaret Reddick.
I don't know
Bowling
who
for
does her
Soup,
writing.
and
I
of
guess
course,
it's her.
Phineas
Well,
and
so
Ferb
that I was
fame.
going to tell you, like, so that first
he's
big
even
hit
doing the
that,
voice of Chuck E. Cheese. This guy is all over the place,
don't know
and he's got some great
why.
podcasts of his own.
Probably written for
here
her,
to talk
I'm
about
guessing.
it.
No,
we
she
became
wrote
fast
it
friends on
with
this
this
thing,
dude Jesse,
and gave you a
who
great
had
podcast,
never gotten a
so
cut
you can
on a
find it
record
right
ever,
now
and he had
on
we
the
had the same
LT2
attorney.
part of the
And,
Lex and Terry
that
app.
dude's
You can
life
also find it
completely
on the
changed.
Spreaker platform.
Yeah. I mean, it was just they were just like, dude, go buy a house.
iTunes.
Like
Legend
everything
Cast.
is different now. Because that song got Grammy nominated as Song of the Year. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps to see you guys succeed. That's why my job was so cool in L.A., because
hey, welcome
you'd
to
see
the
guys
Lex
who
and
just
Terry
got signed
app.
and you're working their records.
It's
and,
free. A lot of people
Black
listening
Crowes,
to
one
it.
of them.
And
one of my
if you got a
crown
small
jewel
business
moments
or a big business,
was
it doesn't
we
matter.
worked with them to get
Looking
them
for
on stations.
advertising at a fair price
And
that gets
I remember
to a lot
that
of people.
album coming
then
into the
you may
music
want to reach
meeting.
out to us.
We used to get CDs that nothing written on them.
Right.
Come into
and
our
let us
music
know
meetings,
what you got in mind.
I
we can
heard
talk
like,
about it. We can deal, negotiate,
the Cult
all that stuff.
album a year
And
before
in
it
the
came
end,
out.
we
I
think
heard
we can give you some
I heard
great
all this stuff a
advertising
year
for
before
great
it came.
price.
I actually heard
And,
the
of
Cult
course,
record
we
with
can make
Rick
some bank to
Rubin
make
and
this
my
app
boss
even better.
driving
it all works
to
out
see a
in the
Kings
end.
game.
Make sure you contact us
and
once
he
again.
had it with him.
Lex at
And
Rick Rubin do that electric record?
LexandTerry.com.
Electric,
Start
yeah.
throwing
Did he
down
really? That
with
makes
the
sense.
givers.
Yeah.
God, those drum sounds are so good.
And it's so filthy.
It's
it's
just so good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why they didn't have him do them all after that, I have no idea. But although the Bob Rock stuff was pretty good.
The Firewoman thing.
Hey, you know what? Network Innovation
was,
Solutions.
I think that was the next
is an
record that
amazing
came out.
Sonic
company.
Temple.
They built
Sonic
this
Temple,
app.
yeah.
They built our website, and they're
that
tremendous
had to have been
deal
crazy
with.
though. Sitting
the
in a
best
music
part is
meeting or
that
whatever,
the prices
and like at
are
the
reasonable.
time,
The talent
hair
you're
metal is
working
kind of
with
still
for
king,
designing you these
right?
things
is
top
and
notch.
then you've got
it's
this
all
whole
over the
other world of like
so
whatever
give
pop
it a
is
try.
at the time. And
it's
but to me, both of those
Once
bands,
you're
the
on
Black
there,
Crowes
you can
and the
reach
Cult,
out and get yourself
really
involved
stood
with
out
a
as just
company
being
that will call you back.
Yeah, I mean,
somebody that will give you some
they were
fantastic
there.
ideas.
They sort of
somebody who's
were
not gouging
off in a
you
lane by
and
themselves.
gives you a quality
and,
product.
It's like when
it
we
is
got them as
sanctioned, of
program
course, by
directors,
us,
we were like, oh,
Lex
God, yes.
Terry.
Especially in Jacksonville, that
Network Innovation
thrives on the
Solutions.
dirty.
They love the rock, right?
I mean, AC/DC broke in Jacksonville. A lot of people don't know that.
No.
A High Voltage. I went and saw AC/DC when High Voltage came out because both stations were playing it in Jacksonville. I was like 17, 18 years old. and we went and saw them at the Jacksonville Coliseum, and it was sold out
fantasy
because they were getting
advice,
tons
girls,
of airplay. We were
you're in a league
going
with
surfing in the morning and hearing, Live Wire,
girl, you can't win
Long Way to the Top,
then you
and all
may
these
want to
great
check
fucking
us out
songs.
on Thursdays and Fridays.
So
when
we got a ticket to go see them,
what you're
and
told.
it was phenomenal. And then found out they were playing in Savannah the next night,
and you must
which is just an hour and a half away. So we got in the car and went up there.
Your fantasy football team,
hoping we could get a ticket and get in. And they were at a club
Thursdays
that held about 200 people.
Right
It was
here
like
on
half
Lexington.
capacity.
Wow.
And we ended up doing shots with Bon Scott and Malcolm Young.
Nice.
Who wasn't even a dressing room. They were just off to the side.
Yeah, totally.
And the night before, they had 18,000 people, and then no airplay in that town. Mm-hmm. That's why radio was so fucking cool to me.
I got to live that. I actually got to
make sure
live
you
that
check out
life.
Lex
So
and
you
Terry's
asked me
social
about like the
media.
transitions and all
awesome.
that stuff.
At Lex
We
and
got
Terry
to do
is
that
our
because
Twitter.
even in early
At Lex and
2003,
Terry
you would go to
where you
certain
can reach us
towns,
on Instagram.
and if you were on the radio,
and everybody
again,
from the
sold
show
out
is
show, and
posting
you're
on
doing a
there.
radio
And you
show,
can
and there's
also
12, 13,
get us on
14,000 people
Facebook.
there,
Over
or whatever, and then the next night,
255,000 likes, and we're looking for more. So
in
get
a
on there and like
bar,
our page and check out
like I
all
said,
the things
we were still
that
in
are
a van
happening lately with
back
Lex and
then.
Terry. We're talking the latest and the
That's
greatest.
a weird time.
Just make sure
to
you
live
go
in,
to Lex and
and I'm
Terry.
sure for them, I mean, gosh, that was
Just make
ages
sure
before.
you go to official Lex and Terry
How
on
cool
Facebook,
is it, though, to
and
make
you'll be
something,
good to go. Looking
because
forward to
I
hanging
found
with you on there.
by meeting you.
Yeah.
I didn't know much about Bowling for Soup until you came in, and I immediately got the record.
Hey, let's talk some.
And downloaded it and everything
Hey,
else
let's talk some Lex and Terry social
I'd
media.
never heard 1985 before for some reason or another.
Hey, let's talk
Well,
some
we
Lex and
would have
Terry
been on your
social media.
stations for
You
a
can
while
reach
with
out to
Girl
us
the
on
Bad Guys Want,
Facebook
but then
anytime
that
you
song
want
went to
at
pop.
official
Yeah.
Lex and Terry.
And
This is a
so,
great
of course,
song,
have
by the
over
way.
1985 though would have been the same thing
255,000 likes because
that's the thing
it's
about
a great
bands
page.
like us.
It's
When you're a
also
rock
where we
band
put all the
and you
latest
cross
stuff
over
that's
to pop,
happening up
it's
to the
hard
minute.
to come back.
And
Like,
you can go
rock
ahead and
stations
find
usually
out
will
just
not
by going there.
ask
If you
you
have
don't
not
get
liked the
back.
page yet,
There's a
please
few
do, because
anomalies out
we
there
are
like
shooting for
Seether and bands like that
300,000
that have a
and
crossover
another
that
drinking
is just
show.
like one song.
So,
For some reason,
if you wanna see
bands
that
like
happen,
us and Simple
you
Plan,
gotta go on there and like the page.
All American
That's the way that
Rejects.
works.
You start out
So
on
go ahead
rock
and do
radio.
so.
Once we
And once
all went
again,
pop,
thank you
we're
for
not
checking
getting
us
asked
out
back.
right here
and
on the
it's a
world's
shame
best app,
'cause
Lex and Terry.
Like I said, on the app now, you play like Addicted by Simple Plan.
Yeah.
Next to any rock record, it sounds fucking great.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And I think the same is, I think
It's Lex and
all
Terry.
of our
Thank
all
you
of
for
our
checking
genre.
out the greatest app on the
I
planet.
think You Found Glory
and
in
of
Sum
course,
41
we're
and
playing
Bowling for
some cool
Soup and,
music. We're
again,
already
Simple
giving
Plan.
you great talk.
See,
That's
those
what
are-
Lex
those
and
are
Terry
all
does. But just make sure
bands
you have your
a guy my
Shazam
age
ready,
shouldn't love,
because
but
we
it's like
made it
they're
so
like
you
my
can
favorite
Shazam
bands.
while you're
That's
listening
what
to the
it
app.
should be, though.
That's a
You
big
should be able to
request
listen to
we
that
get
stuff
from a
and
lot
then
of our
lit, and
listeners
then,
that are hearing music new
by
and
the way, if
old
you haven't
they
heard
haven't
their
heard
country
before
stuff,
or
I
haven't
don't know
heard
if
in
you're
a
a big
long
country guy,
time. It's an
but
eclectic
check out the
mix,
band
but
Lit.
people are
Lit has
digging it
country
in this
stuff.
They have a
downloading
country album,
culture.
and
Get the
it's
fuck
So
out of here.
there you
awesome.
go.
And
There we are.
I love Lit.
Giving you what the givers
it's
do.
great. So
Once
now when they
again,
do their concerts,
exactly what you
they
want.
do the first half in country. They do the first half as country
Oh,
stuff.
that's so fucking cool.
And then they play like Ziploc and My Own Worst Enemy and all that shit.
Oh,
after.
man.
Hey, it's Lex and Terry. You know what
those
we want out
songs
of you?
are,
Your
My Worst Enemy, songs like, just fucking great songs.
So those dudes are good friends of mine, and I told them to their face, I think Ziploc, if I could get another chance.
Hey, it's
put it
Lex
in
and
a
Terry.
Ziploc
If you're at
bag.
home and you're
I'm
hearing
like,
this in your
that
head,
song is perfect. It's just a perfectly written song. There's not a lot of those.
No.
You know, you hear them every once in a while. You're like, Mr. Jones by Counting Crows. That's a perfect
it's
song.
perfect song.
Imagine
if things aren't
by
going
John
well at
Lennon. Honestly,
home,
perfect song.
in your
I'm like, I put
relationship,
Ziploc by
or
Lit in
anywhere
that
else for
category.
that
I'm like,
matter,
that's how perfect
don't
that
you
song
know?
is.
You can pick up
You
the
know,
phone and
but yeah,
call us
they're,
anytime you want.
Highway to Hell, perfect song.
977
Highway to Hell's a
us.
perfect song.
Hey, you
Perfect
can even
song.
email
You're right.
us
3.5 minutes.
lexandterry.com.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
Says all it needs to
the
say.
show
Why
at
don't you just get in there and get out?
lexandterry.com.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
what we'll
that's what you
do is
I,
call you back.
I-
If you tell us when you're
I
available,
get in arguments with
we'll reach
people
out to you
about the
at
Bon
that time of
Scott,
the
Brian
day,
Johnson,
and
AC/DC
You can give us your
Right.
situation.
And to me, it's two different bands. Because the singer's so powerful in that band that it has to be.
That's-
so
Hey, it's
to
Lex
me,
and
it's
Terry.
like
You know what?
AC/DC
We know
2,
in these
AC/DC
times
1.
with things
Yeah.
that
That's
are
the reason why
crazy,
there should
that
never
it's
be
tough
the
for
Van
you to
Halen
call
argument.
us with
It's
a
the same
situation
thing.
when we ask
because
for it.
the David
But
Lee
you know
Roth
what?
stuff is
You can make
so
an appointment.
different because
All you
there's
got to do
David Lee
is
Roth
go,
wasn't into like
email
song
the show
structure.
at
Like even if you like look
or
at
Lex
like
at
Panama, if you try to sing that song at karaoke, good luck because there's no real
and we will schedule an appointment to
until
call
you get to the chorus.
so we
Whereas
can help
Sammy
you out
Hagar
on the air.
is again he's
just
a
let
meat
us
and
know when
potatoes
you're
guy.
available in
They
our
started
5 hours every
writing
day.
With a songwriting
and we will
machine.
go ahead and reach out to you and get your
voice
situation
and quite
fixed.
a front man.
That way you get taken care of.
The fact
you're
he
ready
took
to
a
go,
back seat
and you
as
can
a guitar
explain
player to
things
Ronnie
to us
Montrose,
so we can help you out.
Which, by the
It's kind of a
way,
request
may
we've
be
been
one of the
getting
greatest
lately,
rock
so we're gonna
records
fulfill
ever
it.
made.
Which one?
The Montrose album.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Beginning to end, just Rock Candy and Rock the Nation, and
He's been in so many of those kind of power. What was the HGA?
Hey, it's Lex and Terry.
SA or something
Listen,
like that. Hagar.
football picks are happening every Friday.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
People are
I mean,
winning.
that was very short-lived.
Yeah, but he's been in a bunch of that kind of shit.
Yeah, he just kind of does what he wants. I mean, his solo
getting
stuff.
Some great Asgard
he has enough on his own solo-wise.
Andy at Asgard Press.
You would think I Can't Drive 55 probably will make him money. Well, no, not probably. It will make him money until he dies.
Yeah, I mean, he had great solo stuff before that. He had I'll Fall in Love Again, which is a great song. Only One Way to Rock.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, those were out before Can't Drive 55.
Select your name one week.
That's the shit my brother listened to in his Trans Am with the T-tops off.
You
know, just it was like that.
And if you don't win that week,
I was trying to think of the guy's name that resurrected all those careers.
Is gone before you know it
because of video.
Time of year, and we want you to
he was
go
with
ahead and get up
I can't
with
remember
us.
the guy's
Picks
name
at lexandterry.com.
But he pretty much got Sammy and a few others, and put I Can't Drive 55 to video and MTV and everything, and pretty much restarted his career all over again.
Absolutely. I don't think I even know that.
What's the guy's name?
We do the best talk.
I mean, he did it for.
We also give you amazing things to check out.
That makes a lot of sense.
Everything
like
that's
all these guys out there that didn't really know they should make videos yet.
We are also looking for your involvement. If you have a situation, you know what? You can call us
the vibe
now
for Sammy would be make a record, go on the road, make some money,
and you can email us and let us know when you're available. Just give us your phone number. We'll call you right around the time you're asking.
I can't believe I can't think of the guy's
name. You've given it some good thought. You're free to talk, and we can have us a real nice conversation on a good, clean line.
And
kind of the way it's done
fucking
these
great.
days.
Yeah, he does.
So give it a try once again.
Does his hair and
Lex at lexandterry.com
because it's
or the
great.
show at lexandterry.com.
Yeah,
let us know when you're available.
I saw him in Vegas
up.
about a year or so ago. He had Satriani in the band and had Mellencamp's drummer.
Kenny Arnold?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's like my favorite drummer.
Yeah. And he's a beast.
Dude, I got to see that guy at I went to the NAMM festival.
One of the most fun things I've been involved.
It's like all the music gear nerds basically go to this
one of the most fun things I've been involved with this year is the Lex and Terry app.
And
putting the music together,
just walk around,
just grabbing some stuff that has not been on the radio waves. Sometimes
anyway,
ever.
I'm walking down
just haven't been on in a long time.
And just behind this glass wall is just Kenny.
Forgotten times and places that people are really digging. From what I understand, we are blowing up some people's Shazams on their phone.
That's right.
You
can
Taylor
Hawkins.
There's
guys that
while you're listening.
Hit the drums with purpose.
Go ahead and keep that in that little mind of yours.
That second Avril Lavigne record, and they got Kenny Arnold come in and play.
And you can have it on your phone, download it immediately.
He walked in, played the record, and walked out in 2 hours. Like a record.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, he's a total pro. I mean, there's so many people that have used. I mean, I think
the best effing
I think Alanis used him.
Oh yeah.
You know why? Because
but then Taylor Hawkins was her drummer.
And we also have,
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
the
played
show
at Trees
that can't be
here in
duplicated.
Yeah,
the Lex and Terry
is.
show. So it's all on there. 24/7 greatness.
He's a freak
Live
of nature,
in the morning,
man. Because
replay the
going
rest
to watch
of the
that
day,
show when they were just here in Dallas,
we give you all 5 days
close
to
a 3-hour
show from the previous week. So
And
there is no reason not to be on there at all times. So if you got to
play those songs,
you got to wait to download an app from iTunes
there was
or
a
Google
stretch
Play.
there where they were playing.
You got everything you need.
The My Heroes and Monkey Ranch. All the stuff that's
the radio.
Yeah.
Pretty physical in nature. They did it like all in a row for like 25 minutes. I was just like
the Lex
and
Terry
he puts
app.
on it. And like you said, he's putting on a show. Like he's there's a lot of body movement and stuff like that, which is physically insane.
Yeah, I was telling my daughter. I said, remember this. This is a band in their zenith. They have worked 24 years to get to this.
Right.
This is as good as they're ever going to be because now they're going to start aging.
Lex and Terry.
And this tour. This tour is probably, if they do another record, another tour like this, I'll be surprised.
30 right now because
and they're
of my
certainly capable
irresponsible
of it.
attitude.
This was a lengthy
I'm
tour.
here to tell you,
which kind of tells me, they're going to be dormant for a while.
That's right. 10 pounds
probably
in
not going to be what they were.
That's how it starts with Go Cleanse.
When they, I may be wrong. I mean,
you just never know.
I'm just kind of looking at the odds and their age, they're into their 50s now and stuff like that.
I'm in the middle of another 30-day Go Cleanse run
go
right
watch
now.
Them? And how do you feel like those shows are?
Irresponsible. Ate a lot of sugary
but they're
foods
not really
and bad
putting out the music, I guess.
Put my weight back on. I'm ashamed.
That's what you're saying. You're saying,
I mean, I haven't liked the Stones live
because
since
I have Go
81.
Cleanse on my side.
See, we're the
I
same.
have gone ahead and lost
I think
10
there
pounds
is a time
already.
where
I'm already eating better
it just
once
isn't
again.
As, it's not
along with the fine product that Go Cleanse
is. Industry because of Ozzy Osbourne's crazy tour. 100%. But I don't really need to see him. I don't need to. And my favorite artist of all time is Willie Nelson. I've seen him 10 times. It just makes me sad seeing him.
I was irresponsible.
Yeah, I mean, there's some guys that pull it off.
Started eating like
Sammy's
a jerk
one of them.
again.
Yeah,
and put a bunch
Sammy
of it
pulls
back
it off
on.
still.
So now I am riding the Go Cleanse train with
as far as people that are as good now as they were in the heyday, like Aerosmith and stuff like that.
So
it's kind of one of
those things where I'm along for the ride.
Metallica,
I'm playing
they're
at home
their
version
zenith right now.
Which you can do too.
When I went and saw them at Orion Fest, it's like it can't get any better than
signed
this.
up, and you can be just like those folks.
There was no drop off from what I saw 10 years earlier.
That's what my plan is.
That's an interesting thing to say and see because
and I'm looking for more.
So much,
and you know what? I
as
am
a
eating
band
great
and
food.
just the roller coaster
I am comfortable
of just them.
Because you still get to eat.
I was so
amazing meals when you're on Go Cleanse, along with
Saint Anger,
its cleansing system.
The documentary they did with that, where James was cleaning up and going through his stuff and wasn't even sure he wanted to be in the band anymore.
And you're detoxed.
And the documentary focusing on the guys being left out on
is taking off weight,
waiting on his decision and getting frustrated over it. It's one of the best looks inside a band
and you will
I've ever seen.
Once you
they had
do
to
this,
go to therapy together, right?
You will be back.
They did go together, but until James went off by himself for 6 months, they weren't making any progress. And the douchebag they had as the therapist was, to me, inhibiting any progress. I mean, this guy was just an ass clown as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
And I think Lars felt the same way because he kind of
Lex and Terry
called the guy on his bullshit
to the city of Fargo and Pensacola,
I think
Mobile
you've become
for welcoming us.
The only problem we have left at this point
to your home.
It's like you want this to go on forever and ever. I think we're ready to move forward.
We live there every single day.
Now you're here doing this, and you don't want it to.
You guys are the best people.
And I was like, whoa.
We can't tell you how proud we are to be your friends.
Because the guy did pry a lot of shit out of him, but I agreed with his assessment.
We're also proud of the way you help people out. With
the fixer to the problem
just down the road from
somewhere,
Pensacola,
and good for Lars, and
things happening
Kurt
up in Blizzard Land and Fargo,
spotting it
people
and just
are
getting
always
rid of the
there
guy
for other
because
people.
obviously they've been fine.
Was there not a bass player involved? So was this between Jason and Robert?
We were there,
they had just brought Jason had left. As a matter of fact, there's a part of the documentary where they go see his new band play
and take care of the
kind of walk out in the middle of it like it was
just want to say
too painful or too
we here in this room are so proud of you guys and so proud to be your friends.
Well, they went back to say hello to him and
thank you. And
didn't
realize
come out.
if you want to help
so
both
there was
of
like a lot of bad feelings there and stuff like that.
The American Red Cross.
I don't know if those ever got fixed or not, but yeah, the whole thing was fascinating because here's like one of the biggest bands in the world.
Yeah.
And you're watching their literally fall apart right in front of you.
Hey, I want to thank Fargo
you don't want
and
it to.
Pensacola Mobile
Cliff
for our
Bernstein
recent trips,
was a genius
their hospitality,
for putting that together.
I
mean, the attention the band got on that.
Hey,
not
it's Lex.
Just from
Terry and I,
fans,
Sarah,
but from other
Ian,
bands.
Right.
All love you guys. I want to thank you for your hospitality when we came in lately to Fargo.
I think it's interesting to just let people in sometimes, because that's the big thing that you have to.
We are so impressed.
That's the one thing that social media has allowed.
You jumped on the victims of Michael just down the road in Panama
to just
City.
Express the fact that we're just people.
It can't go unnoticed.
It's just
so
everybody's just a person.
We're telling you right now, everybody out there listening on the Lex
shit going on in everybody's
app,
life. I mean, you look at
our cities are so good at taking care of our other cities
She's
that
got
are in
demons
trouble.
like anybody else. She just talked about being on top of the fucking world. She's on top of the world now for the second time.
Your morning
and
show,
again, there's just shit that goes on in people's lives, and it's hard, So I've started talking a lot about my anxiety and depression and things like that online. And at first, it was tough to even say anything about it because I didn't want to be like, oh, the funny guy got fat. Now he's going to blame it on depression.
If you can give even $1, $2,
I haven't gotten
need it right now.
Everything that I'm getting is like, holy shit, thank you for saying something.
Once again,
just
want to thank you guys that have already been there for doing so.
Something has to go somewhere when you go through something like that. It's kind of funny. The last time I saw you guys, you came in as a band.
It's redcross.org.
I kind of sensed the tension.
Guys,
between the two of you.
And
me and Eric.
Anybody else out there that's a first responder.
I don't know if it was towards each other or just towards where the band was or whatever. Obviously, you're still together now, so it got worked out, whatever it was. But I definitely picked up on it.
Hey, it's Lex.
And I think he even addressed it a little bit, that he was kind of like, he had his kids or something like that.
Like Fargo and Pensacola, Mobile, where we were just at lately. Can't tell you how genuine you guys are.
I mean, we're talking like 8 or 9 years ago.
Okay, so
really make it a pleasure and a privilege to get up every single day.
He was living in South Carolina and trying to fly back and forth.
We did not,
and all of that. And I was dealing with. I was already probably I was already in counseling with my ex.
Panama
Two kids at home and all that. And what we did was
we're going to head down there and help out the victims of Michael.
If there was any tension that morning, it was probably something just silly.
Saturday.
Maybe he was late, or
we just want to say thank you so much.
It wasn't heavy. It wasn't heavy, and it's like Terry and I go through those things. I mean, people think we hang out all the time and do everything together. We don't. You never have.
Know about Puerto Rico,
we're two totally different people.
I think that's smart.
Even back in Houston, still needs help from a year ago.
Like Gary and I are pretty much
on behalf
as
of the
best
show,
of friends as you can be.
So
we're together all the time. Chris likes to keep by himself
for helping
and
out.
Eric also likes to do his own thing.
Haven't helped out and want
to, for us, what we did was we got to a point where, and it was me, and I was just like, guys, I'm going through this time.
It's there all the time. There's
I
people all over the world that need help.
Once again, I'm going through a divorce.
And thank you once again
at that point, I hadn't been diagnosed as depressed yet.
Lex and Terry.
I was already dealing with the anxiety, but I'm just like, man, I can't. I gotta slow down. And so we did. We tapped the brakes in 2013. Took like a solid year off touring and didn't do anything internationally at all. And man, when we came back, we were like a ball of fire, and we still are. Like we're just everything we do is 100%. We're all clicking on all cylinders. Our audiences now, I mean, because 1985 and Phineas and Ferb both came out in 2005, our audience now, we're selling out everywhere we go because all those kids are in college now, and it's just, we did the right thing. Instead of letting it implode on itself, instead of letting everything come to a head and me start to resent them and resent the band and us start to tear each other apart. And not that everybody else hasn't had their own shit going on, but mine was, guys, like my life's kind of falling apart here, and I was honest about it. And we took that break.
As was I.
Best thing we ever did. It was, and again, it's just, and you know what? Everybody kind of got their shit together at the same time, and so it's good now.
Yeah, I mean, you find out things about people. It's like Terry and I kind of had this, thing going on the air where we were like taking shots at each other and stuff like that. It's like we, at this point are a radio show for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
When I went through my divorce and my stuff, he was rock fucking solid.
Yeah.
I mean, he was money. I will always appreciate the fact that, he put whatever differences he had with me aside and attended to, somebody that was needed a friend.
Yeah.
You know, needed somebody to get it.
I had I had a lot of shit going on at the same time. I was in another band, and that band didn't work out, and there was like this insane bad blood that happened between the other guy and I'd never had that before. I've never had an enemy before, and so that was happening at the same time. And you know, Gary, my friend Gary from Bowling for Soup, and then my friend Linus. I mean, it just from both directions, just like you said, man, they were just there. And they just listened, and like it, you know, if Gary hadn't heard from me in a couple of days, he was just like, "Okay, I'm meeting you at Chili's in an hour," and you know, you need that, man. You know, you got to have that.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting up in the middle of radio shows, having like anxiety and panic attacks, and having to like go outside.
Yeah,
you know, because I felt like I was just being closed in on, and you know, he never called me out on it, like ever.
I could get up in the morning, get my kids to school, feed my dogs. Mm-hmm. I'd get home, fetal position in the bed till it was time to get the kids. Go get the kids, get through the night, fetal position on the bed, or get as drunk as I possibly could so I could sleep.
Right.
And then repeat. And I did that for a couple years.
Yeah. You know, I was on medication and, you know, stuff like that. You know, so I was here, but I wasn't here.
Do you got that stuff figured out now? Your anxiety?
Oh yeah.
Are you still taking medication?
I mean, I have it prescribed. You know, I mean, at the time I had a lot of it prescribed. Now I have like 5 pills a month. You know, so in case I have a panic attack.
Okay, so I take a depression med every day and an anxiety med every day, as low a dose as you can, and then I have that prescription that if I need it, it's there. But a 30-day supply of the Xanax basically lasts me 6 months.
Yeah, I mean that's basically it. You know, I was taking that pretty regular because it was preventing panic attacks.
Yeah,
you know, it was just like I knew I was going to have them.
Knew we were going to have one.
Yeah,
anyway.
I mean, I'm dealing with all this stuff I'd never dealt with before: divorce and bankruptcy and financial problems, and you know, making sure my kid's okay.
Yep.
You know, and this affects her as little as possible, and you know, it was just absolutely overwhelming, and not, you know, I'm in a new relationship, you know, and you know,
we have the same story.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
My doctor said to me, I go through a divorce. I'm in my ex and I co-parent fine, and everything's great now. But for 2 years, we didn't agree on anything. We were in and out of court. You know, I got into a new relationship. I moved from Highland Village to Prosper. My band took a year off, whatever. You know, so I'm sitting there and explaining this to my doctor. He goes, you know, Jaret, any one of these things is enough to send somebody into an anxiety-ridden, fueled, like, panic attack, you know, montage. He goes, you've got all of it. So, like, give yourself a break. Like, it's okay. Because my big thing was I've never liked drugs. I didn't want to take pills. I as much as I love my beer, I do not want, if I have a headache, it takes a while to convince me to take Advil. I don't like it.
Well, I mean, Xanax broke up my marriage, in my opinion. You know. Oops, sorry about that. It broke up my marriage, in my opinion. You know, the abuse of that stuff and other things that came with it. That not from me, just witnessing it. You know, I'd had enough of it. You know, and the first thing when I get out of my marriage is I get prescribed
you get put on Xanax,
you know, and I'm like, do you have anything else, like anything, you know? And you know, she's like, no, this
is what this does.
When taken properly, it's fine.
Exactly. If you're taking a small dose to get you through the day or to get through an airline flight or whatever, that's it. It's like when you're popping one in the morning and another one at noon and another one at night or whatever, then you're pouring a fucking fifth of booze on top of it.
Yeah, which is what I just got away from.
Yeah.
You know, so I didn't want to be that person, but you know, I didn't want to go anywhere without having one of those near me.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, man. It's Yeah, it's a crazy thing to have gone through, and then as you look back upon it, it's almost like this whole this window of time where you're just like, you sort of look at it like it's just this one object, like, oh, this is during that time where I was going through this bullshit, and for me, it took a few years to get the medication right. It took it took therapy, all of that stuff, and you know me well enough to know, like, I'm the funny guy. Like, that's what I do. Like, when I speak to, so like I was going on stage and like being hilarious and then just being absolutely miserable. And, and I think, having friends or at least acquaintances or whatever that go through this and don't make it, like when Chester passed away or whatever, like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I mean, I've had numerous conversations with that guy. I peed next to him at the Kerrang Awards. You know what I mean? Like, it's a fucking epidemic.
I saw him on Carpool Karaoke with Ken
James Corden.
But what's the guy's name that was in Hangover? The Asian guy, Ken.
I know who you're talking about.
They were having such a great time because Ken's like a huge Linkin Park fan.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And this is 5 days. This was filmed before he committed suicide.
Yeah,
and he looked like he was having the best time. Mm-hmm. Looked like he was fine. And you're sitting there watching it. I literally had to turn it off because I'm like, oh my God, 5 days later.
Yeah.
And the two guys in the back seat, you could tell they got along as a band, that they were all
bros. Yeah.
They were all bros and everything. And, they're all laughing at each other's stuff. You could tell they weren't sick of each other and all that, and I'm just watching them in the back seat going, man, you guys have no idea what's about to happen to you. I can't
even imagine that.
It was just really hard to watch. It's on iTunes. If you ever have the stomach for it, it lets you realize how precious something is until it's gone.
Once all that shit started happening, it was much easier for me to just go, okay, fuck it, I'll a friend of mine did a blog. He does a blog about depression and anxiety. It's just like, fuck it, I'll answer all the questions openly and honestly. And it's just like, look, I always preface, and even this interview, like, I'll preface it, like, I'm not asking anybody to feel sorry for me. I'm not, again, like, your story is your story, and if you don't believe in the whole mental illness thing, you really should probably listen to some people that have had it, because on my podcast, on Jaret Goes to the Movies, my co-host Rich we don't agree on anything. Same as you and Lex, we not you and Terry, as far as like we don't hang out or anything like that. Obviously, I know you guys are buds, and me and Rich are fine. But
we are in a certain way. It's like as far as the show goes, we talk about ideas. Our sense of humor is pretty in line, and all that stuff. And I'm kind of, not that he's not capable of it. He just doesn't like it. I kind of handle the mundane business shit of the show. He handles creative stuff and preparing shows and stuff like that. We all have like our routine we go through to make this happen every day. But there were days where the thought of talking to somebody on the phone about some piece of business or whatever, I was just dreading the shit out of it.
I let so many things go. I mean, I cost our band a lot of money and myself. So and we've talked about the financial aspect of things, when you go through a divorce and custody and all of that. But to add to that, not being able to work or not, like you said, like I was exactly the same way. It's like there's a business call, I'd put it off, and then it would go away. Or opportunities to do this, or just letting the Bowling for Soup merch store slip through my fingers and just not even pay attention to it for a year, things like that. You're right. I mean, sometimes sometimes preparing yourself to talk to a friend on the phone just seems it seems like I just can't do that.
How many times did you look at your phone and it's somebody you adore and love, and you just, I can't do 20 minutes
all
of
the
this.
time. All the time. I mean, constantly, actually. Like, I just, and then I would text, like, hey, call you later, and I just wouldn't.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was like, okay, I'll feel better later, and I'll give that person a call, and it would never happen.
Same here. But it turns out you don't feel better later.
You don't. No.
It's, it got to the point where I have people to take care of, including the people I work with, and so I just had to, just get my shit together, and over time, I kind of got back to being myself. The problems didn't go away. I guess I just got used to them being there, and it was just the new set of circumstances.
This is the way life is now. Same for me. It's like the band and the crew depend on me for their livelihood, and if I'm not at least 75%, then they don't pay rent.
Yeah,
and so it took. It took some of that, and then it took, like I said, I'm married to my best friend, and she was just awesome through everything, and she's just absolutely just the greatest thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah, the sad part for me, because I don't think she'll ever get past it. She doesn't say anything. I can just tell that, Lisa's seeing the side of me before all that happened, because, I met her while I was still married, even though, I had already had a conversation with my wife that, the stuff you're doing is, you're not going to impede me living life.
Right.
So don't be surprised.
Right.
So I had met her, and, it changed my life. I was like happy again. And, I realized I can be in a relationship with somebody and be, happy. And, I met the chick I should have met all along. And, and then all this hit, the realities of it hit, the divorce, the court dates, the financial situation going from great to, in debt. Yeah. And, my child, kind of being put in the middle of this unwillingly, all this stuff starting to get to you, so unfortunately the last person she got to see was that person, and, she had gone back to Oklahoma a couple of times because I wasn't the guy she met.
Right.
She didn't know who this guy was. I didn't know who this guy was.
Sure.
So, she ultimately was comfortable with me to a point where, she came back, she loves me, all that stuff, but there's still that part of me that thinks, that's what she sees now. She got to see something she shouldn't have seen.
Right.
Yeah. And that makes me sad.
I bet she doesn't feel like that. And you know what? Maybe you guys should just go to like a tune-up counseling thing and just like go for a couples thing. And if that's out there, she gets it out, and then that's it.
Yeah, I mean, she got it out. I mean, she articulated it. She's extremely. She's a country girl. She's extremely honest.
Yeah.
And to the point sometimes where you wish she wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. She just blurts it out, and you're left to deal with it. But I now know there's a part of her that's disappointed. Whether I fix that or not,
right?
Still remains to be seen. But that saddens me.
I think that's a time thing.
Because I get angry that the person I left had something to do with that.
Yeah.
You're still in my fucking business.
Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately that never goes away.
Yeah.
I mean, because you still you still have the wacky dreams and shit. Mm-hmm. It just musters it all back up.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You have dreams about things, like you wake up and you're like, oh, like you have the dream. I have this dream, and I'm open with this with my wife. Where I'm like, I get back with my ex or whatever, and then I wake up and I'm like, oh shit, why did I do that? I don't want to do that, kind of thing.
I know.
And then, but you can't, but then, she's just like, oh, I have those dreams about like my high school boyfriend. And I'm like, oh, okay, well then we're good. I think one of the things that you hit on too, I think one of the hardest things for me was during all of that, keeping the kids out of it and just wanting to just sit them down and just go, here's everything that's going on and everything that's being said and blah, blah, blah. But I didn't do that, and I'm glad I didn't, and I think at the end of the day, you know what, we all made it out alive and everybody's happy and, now. But that was really, really hard, some of the times whenever I was, on my way to court or whatever and drop the kids off to at school and just like, okay, guys, I'll see you after school, and then I go to this thing where it's just the most miserable day of my life.
Yeah,
and
the vibe is just heavy and horrible. And,
good Lord.
You're across the table from this person that you thought you knew.
And you don't.
And
they're thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although to me it was unfair she thinks the same thing because I didn't change anything.
Right. I do that thing too. And I agree. I think I'm still the same person, and then a lot of things changed and, but at the same time, like I have to go back. So if I'm being fair about the situation, I have to go back to, okay, starting when we met in 1998, sometimes I was gone for 6 months out of the year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I at least have to put that back into like her corner of shit when it talks about. So like I can't really blame anybody for why it didn't work out. I just hate all the shit that went down after.
Yeah.
That's the hard part for me, is just all of the back and forth and establishing this and being mad, at me for having a girlfriend or yada yada, which I didn't do that stuff, like I don't care. Like I always would rather her have someone in her life because it got her out of my shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, my situation was I wasn't looking for anything. It found me.
Yeah.
Because, over the course of Lex and Terry, the first 20 years she and I were together, I mean, chicks would throw themselves at you, and I was a happily married guy, Even when I wasn't happily married, I was just like, I don't need the aggravation of,
sure,
I just didn't like the chick enough to upset
blow it,
and then Lisa came along, and it's a once in a lifetime. I mean, that's truly the feeling I had about her was, there's not going to be somebody like this, so you better act on it.
You got to jump on that.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. So, so it started, and, I even at one point, at her request, tried to fix it and, said, hey, if you can clean all this up and everything, I'm yours till the end.
Did you go to therapy and shit?
She wouldn't do it.
Okay.
She wanted me to do it.
Oh, you needed to go to therapy.
I need to do it.
You needed to go fix it. Okay, we did. Me and the ex did counseling for a couple years, and we did individual and couples and all of that, and it was obvious that, and even I think the ex would say this. It was pretty obvious that the therapist was kind of on my side all the time, because. So I think that created even more resentment.
And she even said to my face, she goes, you're really good at getting people, to see your side of things. She goes, so I don't think a therapist would be any different.
That's a fear of knowing that she's wrong.
And I just went, they're trained to not let people do that to them.
Yeah.
It's like.
Yeah, that's just, again, that's people her not wanting to go.
Yeah.
Her saying that they're just going to think you're right. And all that shit.
I knew what it was.
Yeah, it's just her knowing that she's the one that's in the wrong.
She's like, you need to go and, and tell them, about getting attention all the time and being a radio person, because that's the real problem here. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, well, that's also paying for this house.
Yeah.
And this and this, and that's the catch-22.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing, is that, yes, I'll agree that my band was very instrumental in breaking up that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But that band is still writing checks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and sorry, but that's that's what you signed up for.
Yeah. You were already doing that, right?
I mean, I said, I was in radio when you met me. Mm-hmm. You were completely aware of my goals, even though this went off on a path even I didn't expect it to, because I expected to be in management and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. Even though it went in this direction, it doesn't change. This is my occupation.
Right.
And I put the same effort into it as I would the other. I'd still be coming home, after 10-hour days or 12-hour days. None of that would change.
Right.
Because I want whatever I'm doing to be the best it can be.
Sure.
So, I didn't apologize for it, like, ever. I just wouldn't do it because that wasn't the problem.
Right.
The problem was, you need to do something to occupy your time. You need to find a passion, and you are at the point with Samantha being old enough to enhance your life and do something that makes you gratified and happy.
Because when they sit around and stew,
it's bad.
They stew because you're out being happy.
Yeah.
And your happiness, part of your happiness is your job and making sure that everything's going the way that it needs to be. And, that's frustrating.
And she seemed like really good at like real estate type stuff and things. I said, let's, get your broker's license.
Yeah.
Let's make the family some money, through you.
The timing would have been great.
Yeah. And she was, it would sound good to her for a day or two, and then it would just kind of go away.
Yeah.
I didn't know where her head was at with that, but, this is a extremely capable, smart woman.
Right.
Which was one of the things I was drawn to with her, was she was, always like a top biller in sales and, she had nice things at 20 years old. She had her own house, her car paid for, this is, somebody who is completely adept at being filthy rich.
And then you guys had the baby and she didn't work for a while and then.
Well, her dad passed away and we had the baby like all in the same, he was like everything to her.
Damn.
I think that had something to do with, with things, because he was definitely her role model, her, her person, so I think that was pretty damaging. And, and then the baby came along, which, she did an amazing job raising her, until things started complicating, like into her teens.
Right.
But, up until that point, I'll say it to anybody, a kid couldn't be raised any better.
Right. And then the teenage girl and mom drama that's harder on the mom.
Yeah, well, my daughter, we found out was a very talented rider in equestrian, like up on a national level,
right?
Within a couple of years, so it was high-end horse shows, and you're competing against, Selleck and Springsteen's kid and shit like that.
No shit.
And she was killing it.
Wow.
And through the divorce and stuff, I'm like, I can't take this away from her because, she had just won Zone 7 and she had a chance to win on national level. Yet the money to pay for that was not there. So it had to come from somewhere else, which is why I'm still in debt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because to take that away from her at that point would have been a much bigger problem.
Yeah, you do what you can. I mean, again, I'm financially, it's difficult, and
yeah. I mean, even the IRS person I'm talking to at the time goes, that's. I can't say I wouldn't have done the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
I went, but that being said, I went, I know.
Yeah.
I know. I know what the rest of that is.
I got you. Yeah. You understand, but you're still coming after me.
Yeah.
With the fucking, with the hounds.
With a vengeance. Yeah.
Exactly. You've got a trident and 6 dogs.
Actually, I gotta say, they've been pretty cool.
Yeah, good.
And as understanding as an agency like that can possibly be.
Sure.
But
they've had to become more sympathetic, because so many people are fucked and everybody hates them. So they're, what are you going to do? Yeah,
I know people that work for them. I know they've had seminars on like suicide rates going up and things like that, and having to work with people, especially after 2008. Mm-hmm. That still has
Tell she